The Core of the Dead is a sequel to The Sun and the Star by Rick Riordan and Marco Shiro. It's the most recent Riordanverse book so far, and it's coming out this September 23, 2025, which is already so near from now. To celebrate the release of this book, I'll be going through everything we know so far to see what to expect once The Core of the Dead comes out. So without further ado, let's get started. In my previous Riordanverse timeline video, I went over how to read the books, but I wasn't able to touch upon The Core of the Dead, mainly because there wasn't much information on it around the time I made that video. So today, I'll explain it, but first, let's get context. There are 3 Camp Half-Blood Riordanverse series, and they come in this chronological order: Percy Jackson and the Olympians, or PJO, Heroes of Olympus, and The Trials of Apollo. With this context, the books of The Trials of Apollo are regarded as the most recent ones in the Riordanverse timeline-wise, and it was said to be Rick Riordan's last Riordanverse series. However, last 2023, Rick published The Sun and the Star with an author named Marco Shiro, and this surprised a lot of fans, mainly because in chronological order, The Sun and the Star happens after the last book of The Trials of Apollo, or The Tower of Nero. The Sun and the Star focus on Nico di Angelo and his boyfriend Will Solas, as together they went on a quest to save the Titan Bob in Tartarus. This plotline was actually the cliffhanger in The Tower of Nero, and Rick decided to continue this idea in The Sun and the Star. The Sun and the Star received a lot of praise, along with some mixed reviews from fans. Some fans loved it, others disliked it, and the rest were pretty mixed about it. If you want to know my thoughts on The Sun and the Star, you can check out a separate video on that, which is linked down below. Going back though, The Sun and the Star was marketed as not just a Nico and Will book, but also as a standalone novel, meaning this was just going to be a single book without any sequels. However, things changed on November 15, 2024. In Rick's website online, he posted an article about the release of The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, or the second book of another ongoing Riordanverse series, the Chalice of Gods trilogy. Rick was marketing The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, but also mentioned The Sun and the Star. He officially announced that The Sun and the Star was getting a sequel book, despite clearing up before that it was just going to be a standalone novel, so it was quite the shock. Rick goes on about this, saying that the idea of the sequel started when he was talking with his co-author Marco Shiro. As mentioned earlier, Mark and Rick worked together for The Sun and the Star, and during one of those book tours, Rick and Mark were talking about Nico and Will's possible future adventures. They brainstormed a lot of ideas that Rick felt like they had to write a book about them all. Rick adds that he can't release anything else around this time, but that the manuscript was already finished. From this article, news about the Sun and the Star sequel kind of died down because of the release of The Wrath of the Triple Goddess. However, Rick eventually announced that The Core of the Dead was coming out on September 23, 2025, and since the release is already so near, both Rick Riordan and Rick Riordan's official Instagram pages released new posts to tease what to expect on this book. So I'll be going through them in this part of the video. So first, let's go over Rick's page. From his recent posts, he detailed the book tour dates for when he and Mark are going to meet fans and sign books. There were a lot of venues, and I'll just flash it on the screen right now. Aside from this, Rick also made his Instagram live video to further tease The Core of the Dead. In this video, Rick gave us a tour of his office before shifting to the synopsis of The Core of the Dead. According to Rick, this new Angelo book follows Nico and Will going to Camp Jupiter to meet up with a lot of characters that we met in the Heroes of Olympus and the Trials of Apollo. Some of them are the following: Hazel Levesque, a Roman demigod son of Pluto and Nico's half-sister, Frank Zhang, or Hazel's boyfriend and a Roman demigod son of Mars, and Lavinia Asimov, another Roman demigod who we met in the Trials of Apollo. Rick goes on about this and explains that Mark was the one who actually came up with the concept of the book and pitched it to Rick. Interestingly, Rick expresses that this is by far the most bonkers book anyone has ever written in the Percy Jackson world because of different perspectives on heroes and monsters, and that it was such a fun book to write. Rick also spoiled a little bit of the book here by saying that we'll actually meet Will's mom. This made me so happy because this is honestly insane. Will Solas' mom is a mortal woman named Naomi Solas, and we know almost nothing about her aside from the fact that she was a country singer and that she was a very kind mom to Will. So adding her here is honestly so cool. Rick ends the Instagram video with talking about the book tours, and he hopes that we enjoy the upcoming book. From this, let's head to the most recent post for The Court of the Dead. This video on Instagram shows Rick unboxing the book in the Athena house, or Riordan headquarters. Rick shows the book cover and says that he loves the purple theme because it matched really well with Camp Jupiter, whose theme is also purple. This is because, as mentioned earlier, we'll meet a lot of Camp Jupiter characters in this new book. Speaking of Camp Jupiter, Rick opens the book and shows that the first pages of the book is a map of Camp Jupiter. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love that. As a fantasy reader, I love it when books have maps, and seeing one for Camp Jupiter makes me so happy. Rick continues about the cover art, so let's go through it here. The cover is purple, as Rick mentioned earlier, and we have 3 main people up front. This one over here on the left is obviously Nico di Angelo himself, because Nico has black hair and he's known to always wear that aviator jacket since PJO. The next figure next to Nico is Will Solus, a demigod son of Apollo and Nico's boyfriend. And lastly, Hazel Levesque, or Nico's half-sister, is on the right. In front of them seems to be a railing of a balcony, and there's a monster roaring right here. This is obviously the Minotaur, which is pretty surprising to me and a lot of fans. The Minotaur has appeared time and time again in the PJO series, and Rick acknowledged it in this Instagram video. He points out that the Minotaur in the cover is breaking out of its chains, and Nico, Will, and Hazel seem to be about to attack, but he doesn't clarify what's actually happening, so I guess we have to wait and see.
What is the Minotaur doing there? What is going on with him breaking his chains? And are Nico and Will charging into battle? Or maybe something else is going on?
Another pretty interesting detail from this cover is this shot of 3 people on a balcony. Actually, the entire place does look like the inside of a Roman amphitheater to me, and these 3 figures weren't actually mentioned by Rick at all. Rick goes over to the back cover art of the book, and this time, it's a map of the Golden Gate Park. I kinda paused here because I don't remember any mention of a Golden Gate Park in San Francisco from the Riordanverse, but it kinda makes sense because Camp Jupiter is near San Francisco Bay. Rick also opens the book to show the chapter titles, and as you can see over here, there's a Minotaur head for the number 10, and it's honestly really cool. It actually adds up well with the previous chapter title design in the Sun and the Star, as there, the design was a sun. Rick ends by going back to the first pages of the book, and he reads out the dedication.
For those wishing for a second chance, a new beginning, an opportunity to choose differently, this one's for you. I think that about sums it up.
This is an interesting dedication, and Rick comments that it pretty much sums up the book, and I wonder what he means by that. So, at this point, let's go over the information we got from the Rick Riordan page. First is this page of the Minotaur. As mentioned earlier, the Minotaur makes another appearance here in the Core of the Dead, and Rick Riordan announced some pretty interesting things on the Minotaur, specifically about how it was getting a rebrand. This is because throughout the series, the Minotaur is treated as nothing but a monster that Percy and the gang had to defeat, but in the Core of the Dead, we'll see a different aspect of the Minotaur, its past, and what awaits him in the underworld. The next news after this talks about the Core of the Dead judges, who might be the 3 figures I mentioned earlier in the book cover. From the Rick Riordan article of these judges, we see that these 3 figures were actually the ones who declare a final fate for a mythical creature in the underworld. If the creature was found guilty, they would be sentenced to death, and that there would be no resurrections at all in Tartarus. The article then goes on about the judges, and details them one by one. The first judge was the one over here with the satyr mask, and his description is pretty eerie. It said that this judge has the responsibility to question the accused, and he was actually someone we may or may not have met causing trouble in Camp Hapland in the past. So with this, we might have met him in PJO, but we're not too sure yet. The second judge is the one who looks like a Gorgon here, and her role is to recite and update the official records of the accused. The Rick Riordan article describes her as someone who has a big ego, partial to fire, and a lot would say that she doesn't deserve to judge people based on her history. The last judge is the one over here in the middle, who kind of looks like Hades or the god of the underworld, and this judge announces the final verdict. Interestingly, the article goes on about how this judge seems like a rando compared to the others, and that it's clearly not Hades himself, because Hades wouldn't have allowed a court like this to happen in the first place. But surprisingly, that's all we know about this last judge. And honestly, I'm really hooked on this idea of the judges in the underworld. I wonder who they are, and let me know in the comments on your thoughts on them. And last but not the least is this article on Meet the Mythics. This one goes over the different monsters or mythics we'll see in this book. They include the following. First are the Blemier, which are creatures we met in the Dark Prophecy, and they work for Triumvirate Holdings. Second, we have a mythic named Orcus who is actually a griffin. Interestingly, we also met griffins in the Dark Prophecy, so I think that Rick is trying to connect this book to the events that we got from the Trials of Apollo, which makes sense because, again, this takes place after the Trials of Apollo. Third is Semele. Semele is a name I instantly recognize from Greek mythology because she was the mortal mother of Dionysus, so I think that's a really interesting name choice. In the Court of the Dead, Semele is an Eidolon, or a creature that can possess other people. We actually saw Eidolons before in the Heroes of Olympus, and we learned just how powerful they are as they managed to possess Leo, Percy, and Jason in the Mark of Athena. So I'm pretty curious about what Rick would do with this. And last but not the least is Quinoa. Quinoa is a Carpoi, and we met Carpois before in the Son of Neptune, or the second book of the Heroes of Olympus. These creatures once worked for Gaia, and that's all we really know about them so far. This last article ends with quite a cliffhanger. It stated that a lot of mythical creatures were going missing and that a powerful force was behind it. It tells us to stay tuned because we'll know what's been going on eventually when reading the Court of the Dead. And that's all I have for you guys today. So how about you? What do you think of the Court of the Dead so far? Let me know in the comments down below.